The UFC pegged Sean O'Malley as a future superstar all the way back in 2017 after his win on the Contender Series. They've clearly done their best throughout his career to build him up, give him every opportunity so he can reach his full potential. He fights this weekend at UFC 316, and it kind of sparked an interesting video idea for me. I'm going to be going through and trying to predict the top 10 stars in the UFC in 5 years' time. It seems like right now the UFC doesn't have a ton of star power. Some of the dudes are aging out. It doesn't seem like they're putting the same effort to build up some of these young dudes like they did for Sean O'Malley. So I think some people might think, 5 years, that's not a ton of time in the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if, none of the champions right now are still reigning in 5 years' time. 10 of the 11 champs are at least 31 years old. 9 of the 11 are at least 33. When you look at some of the biggest stars right now, Pereira's 37, Islam's 33, John Jones 37, might already be done, Volkanovski 36, Holloway 33, Charles Oliveira 35. So a lot of these dudes could definitely be retired out of the UFC in 5 years' time. Now, I kind of gave myself one restriction for choosing my top 10. I only let myself choose 5 fighters who are currently ranked in the UFC. So this let me dig deeper in, certain spots. Also allowed me to go outside the UFC for people who I think might make their way over, within the next 5 years. And then also personal choice. I just didn't choose anyone 33 years or older. Now, you certainly can still be competitive, have star power when you're 38, 39. It's just not super common. I'm going to have timestamps down below if you want to jump to number 10. I do just want to run through some honorable mentions to, before I get into the top 10. Some big names I left off, DDP and Khamzat Chimaev. These guys are both going to be 36 in 5 years. Certainly could still be competitive, especially in a heavier weight class like middleweight. My issue with Khamzat is just, I don't know if his body's going to have a ton of longevity. He's had a ton of, sickness issues. His durability just hasn't been there. It seems like he should have been fighting for a title years ago. He's just now getting to it. I just don't know if his body's going to hold up within the next 5 years. I think he could definitely be retired at this point. And then for DDP, he is someone who just relies on his durability, his raw athleticism. If that starts to fade, I don't know if he's going to be, the same level fighter that we've seen, so far in his title run. Some other dudes a year younger, Sean O'Malley, Shavkat Rakhmonov. For Sean O'Malley, he's someone who I actually did have in my top 10 up until the very end. I ended up removing him because I'm going to make the call that I think he's going to be retired in 5 years' time. I think financially, he probably could retire right now. He doesn't seem like someone who's going to stick around, until he's washed and he's just losing fights. I think he's pretty smart with the way he's managed his career. At bantamweight, I know Merab, I think he's 34, 35. He's kind of breaking the mold, but typically you're not seeing champions in that 34, 35, 36 range. So I think as he starts to dip off, probably within the next few years, I think he's going to be retired in 5 years' time. And then for Shavkat, some durability concerns, right? He's been dealing with injuries over the last few years. Is he going to be the same guy when he comes back? I think 170 is going to be a really strong division for a long time. There are going to be some other welterweights in this video. Then you have some already established dudes who haven't even turned 30, guys like Usman Nurmagomedov, Arman Tsarukyan. These are guys who I think are both probably going to be champions at some point. Probably feel a little bit more confident in Umar, but these are guys who are going to be top contenders probably still in 5 years' time. I just don't know if either one is marketable enough to really break the top 10. And then some other names, Paul Hughes outside the UFC. I think I already have 3 lightweights in this video, so it felt like overkill with 4. You have Joshua Van. I just don't know if flyweights are ever going to get that love. You have all the way up at heavyweight, Taliesin Teixeira. Very, very unproven, but he's the only heavyweight prospect who looks somewhat interesting. He's huge, hits hard. Could definitely just fizzle out, but at this point, it would not shock me if he was the champ in 5 years. You have Raul Rosas, who already has a lot of star power for what his resume is right now. I kind of feel like getting to the UFC so early, while it has given him a lot of attention, I feel like it's kind of going to stunt his growth, and I don't know if he just ever hits that skill ceiling for him to be a star. Peyton Talbot, another guy who had a lot of hype. I think in terms of his popularity, if he continues to win fights and gets into title contention, he certainly could get there. Once again, I just don't know if he's going to get there from a skill perspective. But now let's dive into the top 10 here. At number 10, I went with Ian Garry. Some people love him, most love to hate him, but either way, people want to watch him fight if they want to watch him win or if they want to watch him lose. He is 16-1 as a pro, 9-1 in the UFC. His only loss has come to Shavkat Rakhmonov, and he is only 27 years old. So probably hasn't even come like close to what his prime could look like. He's someone who does kind of work to promote himself. Some people think it's cringy, some people think it's annoying, but he at least puts himself out there where some people are going to like him. Others, like I said, are going to show up to watch him potentially get knocked out. I do think welterweight probably has the brightest future at this point. Guys like JDM, who just became champ, Shavkat, Buckley, you have Morales, Carlos Prates, Sean Brady, a lot of dudes kind of like breaking into the top all at once. And a lot of these dudes are going to be competing for titles within the next 5 years. So I think he's going to have the opportunity to have a lot of these big fights. Like I think Ian Garry, a rematch with Prates in a couple of years would be huge. Ian Garry, JDM would be huge. Buckley would be huge, right? Like all these fights are super, super intriguing. I like that he's continued to evolve his game, right? He came in pretty much purely as a striker, has certainly improved as a grappler, both defensively and in terms of actually using it offensively, like we saw in that Prates fight. So Ian Garry going to come in here at number 10. Then at number 9, I have Mauricio Ruffy, the first of a few lightweights here. He is going to be one of the 2 fighting nerds that I do have in my top 10. And I think he's already probably one of the most popular unranked fighters. He is 12-1 as a pro, 3-0 in the UFC. 11 of his 12 wins have come by knockout. Super dangerous striker, has a super fluid style. He's landed knockdowns in all 3 of his UFC fights. Only 28 years old, so like in 5 years' time, probably entering that prime age at like 33 years old. He also has the push from being a part of this team, right? People love the fighting nerds. They love, the way these guys go for it. He's going to be built up, being connected to all of those fighters. He's also someone who gets like those young Conor McGregor comps in the way he moves. All that stuff is going to help his popularity long term. And then lightweight has been viewed as like the top division for a while now. I still think there are going to be a lot of big names, a lot of big potential fights out there for the future. So I think he's someone who is going to rise up, potentially get the opportunity to fight for and potentially win the title. So I do have him here in my top 10. Then at number 8, this is definitely going to be like my deepest dive here. I have Ateba Gautier here. A lot of people might have never even heard of this dude. He has a 7-1 pro record, only 1 UFC fight, and it was against a dude who was pretty low level. But this dude is a super scary prospect. He is a middleweight, has a huge frame, 6'4", 81-inch reach. He is an insane athlete. He's super explosive. He's very, very powerful. People after his first fight were calling him like the middleweight Francis, another dude who was from Cameroon, and he is only 23 years old. So he has so much room to grow. We know he has like the athletic tools to be a future champion. That's already clear. But what really sticks out to me about him is that even in his first UFC fight, so young with his power, you'd think he'd just be going in there winging punches. I mean, even deep into Francis Ngannou's UFC career, he really didn't get super patient until like that second Stipe fight. In Gautier's UFC debut, he was super patient. He would land a big shot. He wouldn't then freak out and throw a ton of bombs. He stayed super composed. He is a part of a legit team fighting out of a Manchester top team, same team that Lerone Murphy is at, the undefeated featherweight. Now, his takedown defense does still need some work. He is still very green overall as an MMA fighter. But in 5 years' time, right, he could make insane improvements. He would be 28 years old. And I think at middleweight, that athleticism is really going to take you far. I think he could be a very, very scary champion. And with his style, right, like if he's up there competing for titles, defending a title, I think he's just going to be going and nuking dudes, and that's going to bring a ton of attention. So Ateba Gautier is going to come in here at number 8. Then at number 7, I have Michael Morales at welterweight. He is 18-0 as a pro, 6-0 in the UFC, coming off his signature win so far, a knockout against Gilbert Burns. This dude is only 25 years old, and he's already like breaking into that top 10 at welterweight. He might just be like entering his prime in 5 years when he's at 30. He's a physical freak, 6 feet tall, 79-inch reach, which is pretty crazy for that frame. And like I talked about with Ian Garry, there are just going to be so many big, fun matchups at welterweight. Now, I don't think he's a guy who's going to like build himself up as much as a guy like Ian Garry. I do think just in terms of his overall athleticism and peak, I do think it's better and higher than Ian Garry. I think Ian Garry right now is probably like the higher IQ, craftier fighter, but I think in terms of ceiling, Michael Morales does have him, also is younger, so still going to have a ton of room to grow here. Michael Morales is my number 7. Then at number 6, I have Jack Della Maddalena, and he's already become champion. He's only 28 years old, and this is not really me making the prediction that like JDM's going to defend the belt against Islam and hold on to it for 5 years. Like, I don't really think he has to for him to hit like, top 6 star power in 5 years. I think he has the fight style and the mentality to be a fan favorite with or without the belt. He's already taken a huge popularity jump after the win against Bilal. You have the combination that it was a super, super fun fight, so that's going to bring in fans. And then you combine that with the fact that people didn't like Bilal as champion and the fact that JDM went in there, boxed him up. Fans are certainly going to love that. He has another huge high-profile fight coming up with Islam Makhachev. I mean, if he wins that fight, I mean, skyrocket, star power through the roof. Even if he loses, I still think he has a chance within 5 years to like get up there in star power. I think he's got like some modern day Nick Diaz to him. I think he talked about Nick Diaz potentially being one of his favorite fighters. You look at just like the pressure, the boxing. I don't think he has quite the same like charisma or connection to the fans as Nick Diaz, but like he's no nonsense. He just wants to go in there and scrap. I listened to an interview with his agent, and he's talking about how like he doesn't even really care about the belt. Like he just looks at a name he's going to fight and thinks like, I reckon I could beat that dude. I think fans love fighters with that type of mentality. I think in 5 years' time, the welterweight division could be very similar to what lightweight is right now and has been over the last few years, where you have guys like Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, all fan favorites. Some of them have touched the belt, interim titles, the real champ for Oliveira, but like they're not current champions and they're still very, very popular. They're fan favorites without the belt. I think that could be the situation for welterweight. And so like he might remain champion, he might lose the belt, get it back and be the champ in 5 years, but I think he's going to consistently be in the mix. I think he's going to bring fun fights, and I think the fans are going to resonate with that. Now, breaking into my top 5, I'm going to go with John Silva here, and he already looks like a, future superstar. It seems like that's almost inevitable for him. He is 5-0 in the UFC, 5 finishes, coming off a dominant win against Bryce Mitchell. He's a dangerous fighter, has a super fun style. He's finished 15 of his 16 fights. He has 12 knockout wins, 3 submission wins, hits hard, powerful kicks. He explodes into range. His grappling was kind of a big question heading into that Bryce Mitchell fight, and he passed that with flying colors, defended 13 of the 14 takedowns, ended up submitting Bryce Mitchell with a ninja choke. He has a fun personality. He has a flashy style where he's going out there, he's like emoting on dudes in the cage and then going out and just nuking them. You look at 145, like the future of that weight class seems like it's wide open. Ilia Topuria is gone, Max Holloway's gone, Volkanovski is kind of going to age out within the next few years. You still have guys who could be in the mix in 5 years, like Evloev, Diego Lopez, Arnold Allen, but I just think in terms of ceiling, like I think John Silva kind of passes a lot of those dudes. He's only 28 years old. I think right now, maybe next week, I'm going to do a video talking about worst matchups for the current champions. Like I think John Silva right now is the worst matchup for Volk. I think he could be the champ within a couple of years here, and so he is going to come in at number 5. Then my number 4 is actually going to be someone who is not in the UFC right now. It is going to be Usman Nurmagomedov. And I think with Khabib retired, Islam Makhachev moving up to welterweight, it seems almost inevitable that Usman is going to join the UFC at some point, especially within the next 5 years. He's the current Bellator/PFL champion. He has 4 title wins, 19-0 pro record, 8-0 in Bellator/the PFL. He's obviously going to get that push that, this Nurmagomedov team gets, or the family, the team, right? They're all kind of get this bump from the UFC. We saw Umar get a huge push, right? Went from unranked fighters to all of a sudden in a main event against Corey Sandhagen, even after pulling out of that fight the first time. I think if Usman came into the UFC, he would be getting high profile fights right away. And I think in terms of his style, I do think he's a little bit more marketable than Umar. also a higher profile division at lightweight. He's only 27 years old. He's well-rounded, 8 knockout wins, 6 submissions, 5 decisions. He's passed some tough tests outside of the UFC with guys like Paul Hughes, Alexander Shabley. Now, that's not saying he's going to come in and just run through everyone. Like, it's possible that Arman Tsarukyan is just straight up better than him. It's possible that Paul Hughes beats him in the rematch outside the UFC. Like, it's going to be a tough division. He's not just going to cakewalk, into being champion, but with the push he's going to get from his team, the fact that you have the lineage of Khabib being the champ and then Islam Makhachev is coming in, now it could be Usman. He could very well end up being the lightweight champ in 5 years' time, and that is going to come with a lot of attention and star power. And then at my number 3, this is actually someone who I would not be shocked if they were the biggest star in the UFC in 5 years' time. I have Dakota Ditcheva. Now, in my number 1 and number 2 spots, I have guys that I'm already kind of worried about them being retired. So originally, I actually had Dakota at number 1. I ended up leaving these guys in my top 2, but like I said, could totally see Dakota being the biggest star in the sport. She just has such an insanely high ceiling, both from a talent and popularity perspective. She has a 14-0 pro record. She is a flyweight currently under the PFL banner. She has a 9-0 PFL record. She won the $1 million tourney last year. She's a super entertaining fight style. She finishes fights. Finishing upside you really don't see in that weight class. She's finished 13 over 14 wins, 12 knockouts, 1 submission win. Now you could, criticize the quality of competition, but then when she did get that bump up, fought Taila Santos, someone who had a very, very competitive fight with Valentina Shevchenko for a belt. I mean, she just beat the brakes off her. She stuffed all the takedowns, shut down all of the Taila Santos's wrestling and grappling, something that Valentina could not do. And then she just brutalized her on the feet, finished her with just nasty body shots. She's only 26 years old. It already kind of feels like she's outgrown the PFL. It really just seems like a matter of time before she takes that leap into the UFC. She's someone who also not going to go out there and talk a ton of trash, but she can build up fights on her own. She's, can certainly help in that department. And I think when it's all said and done, she is going to go down as the second largest women's MMA star, obviously behind Ronda Rousey. But I do think she has that type of upside, and I think she's going to be women's flyweight champ in 5 years' time in the UFC. Now at number 2, I went with Tom Aspinall. Now, I did mention how I think 1 and 2 do have risks of retiring within the next 5 years. Tom Aspinall's 32 years old. At heavyweight, certainly not crazy to see guys be champion, be competitive, kind of into their later 30s. He has talked about how he'd rather retire too early than too late. That is a thing that a lot of fighters say, but also at heavyweight, 1 knockout loss could really change your entire career trajectory. So there's certainly a risk here, but from a star perspective, especially at heavyweight, Tom Aspinall really has everything you'd be looking for. His fight style is just so entertaining. If you could build a heavyweight in a lab, so far with what we've seen, it probably would be Tom Aspinall. He's 8-1 in the UFC. His only loss was him getting his knee blown out against Curtis Blaydes in the first 15 seconds. All of his wins are by finish. 7 in the first round, 6 knockouts, 2 submission wins. It's really unfortunate because the UFC has just completely stalled his star power and his momentum with all this John Jones BS. The heavyweight division is thin, and I think if John Jones just kind of vacates or they strip him of the belt, it does kind of take some of the shine off of the weight class. But in 5 years, he has a lot of time to build it back up, put together a bunch of, super impressive performances. And I think right now you'd certainly favor him over every active heavyweight. That's not to say there aren't tough tests. Sergey's always going to be dangerous. Cyril Gane, super dangerous striker. Volkov's improved. Jailton Almeida has a wrestling attack that really hasn't been seen a ton at heavyweight. So it's not it's just cake matchups. And at heavyweight, right, all it takes is 1 punch. But you have to think he's going to reign for a decent amount of time. I think he could end up going down as the greatest heavyweight of all time. He honestly probably will if he's going to be the second largest star in 5 years. So he's going to come in here at number 2. As long as he doesn't retire, I feel pretty good about him being up here. And then at number 1, I think a lot of people would probably agree with this. I have Ilia Topuria. Now, Ilia has said that he wants to retire at 30 years old. A lot of fighters typically retire later than they think. But Ilia Topuria is a guy where it's he says stuff, it just kind of happens, it comes true. And I also think he's someone who's clearly very smart with the way he's managing his career. I don't think he's going to be fighting, because he needs the money. So maybe he does retire in a couple of years, and this will end up being a bad prediction. But if he doesn't retire, it's tough to see him not being the biggest star. He's already a star right now. He, knocked out 2 of the 3 greatest featherweights in back-to-back fights with Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway. He's a super fun fight style, an elite striker, crazy power. What we've seen of his grappling has been entertaining and dominant. And now he's going to be the betting favorite to take that lightweight title against Charles Oliveira. 3 straight fights of Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and then Charles Oliveira. That is an insane 3-fight run. And it also seems like he is just hunting Islam Makhachev. So at some point, if he went up to 170, that wouldn't be shocking to me. But overall, he has a great fight style. He has the skills to deliver, and he also knows how to build up fights, right? People think he's delusional. They thought he was delusional against Volk. He backed everything up, and he kind of turned a lot of his haters into his fans. So that is going to wrap it up here for my top 10. Would love to hear your thoughts. Drop your own list or drop your top 5 in the comments. But thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.